What's up, everyone? We are here doing our second episode, Mayans M.C. review. Tonight's episode, much like the first episode, I thought delivered. It had twists and turns like the first episode. It's your typical SOA-ish type, you better follow every word. You better pay close attention because you will get left in the dirt. Mm-hmm. I mean, it starts out with Miguel Galindo and Emily's son being captured. I mean, that's how it starts out. And you later find out that this is actually a vigilante group that they call the Rebels. Mm-hmm. So this ain't like another cartel that's going after them. It's a vigilante group. What did you take from that scene right there right off the bat?
That obviously this rebel group is they're definitely a force. They're not here to play around. They're very organized, so they've got a vendetta completely about this. We learned that from the first show, and you're right. There's a lot of little hidden things that you just don't. You turn your head, you're gonna miss it. And it's like even in the beginning of this, you can catch the station wagon and things like that. And there's little scenes that we seen in the first episode that you just turn your head and you're missing something that's big, something that can kind of link back, which is something that Kurt Sutter's always really good about. And he was like that with Sons of Anarchy, and he's like this with the Mayans too. So you better pay attention because it can definitely play out to be a big thing later on. But back to what you were saying, this rebel group, there's obviously. This is not something that they're just trying to do to like in Sons of Anarchy. We've seen someone with a goal of their own goal was to promote or to rise of their own gang, of their own agenda. This right here is more of a personal thing. Obviously, this cartel has done a lot to Mexico and the border and things like that. So they are pushing back. And this is not just something that they're doing just to kind of gain any kind of money or notoriety and being feared. They're sick of it and they're pushing back. So it's obviously for what they feel is a very good cause.
And when the Mayans finally show up, they end up going to a dog pound. Coincidentally enough, it's called Karma outside of it. And they walk in the dog pound, which looks like a normal dog pound. Come to find out, it was housing humans. It looked like, I guess you'd say sluts, maybe prostitution or something.
Was that really like a drug rehab? I think they're throwing up.
They're throwing up or something. I've been saying it looked like a lot of prostitutes or something in there. Yeah. And they were looking for a certain someone. And as they're about to walk out, you see this guy. I can't remember his actual actor's name, but been in several movies where he plays a Mexican gangster. Sees him, takes off. He's in a Cutlass, a green Cutlass, and he takes off in his car. And as Mike mentioned earlier, you don't know what's going on, but as they're chasing this guy, the classic Kurt Sutter music starts playing. There's a chase coming right behind it. So as he's chasing this car, you see, you just notice the camera pans at this station wagon, but you don't pay any attention at that moment.
It just flies by.
And then you're like, okay, that may be something. Of course, later on it is. But the car goes off this little kind of, I'd say, ravine that dips down probably 15, 20 feet, flips over on top of him. Come to find out, this guy was with the Rebels.
Yeah.
So, and then
he knows something. He's definitely in.
And then
we knowledge some things.
And we find out that actually one of the members, the Mayans, who goes by the name Coco, they kind of intertwine because he says something about his sister being put in a porn movie. And he's about to try to kill the dude right there, and they stop him, and basically he starts spilling his guts, and they get some intel from him, which you thought, that led to some other stuff coming down the pipe,
Well, yeah, even in the Sons of Anarchy, we always kind of go back because Kurt Sutter is he likes to use a lot of the same things, a lot of the same symbolism that he used in the Sons. With this, they use that same, they had a porn studio in the Sons of Anarchy, and this, he mentions that he has something to do with the porn business, and he paid one girl more than his sister, supposedly. So I think in the future, they're going to play a lot more with what Coco and his backstory
And they actually,
his family and sister and things like that.
They were getting a kickback from them of, I believe you said 12%, so they doubled that up to 24%. And come to find out, it wasn't even Coco's. He didn't even have a little sister. He said, I got 2 big sisters. Well, lo and behold, as the episode rolls on, you find out it is one of his bigger sisters that is in the movies. But before we put the cart ahead of the horse, as they leave that situation, they get a phone call, and it's Alvarez, and he's meeting with Miguel Galindo, and I'd say his main protection, due to the braids and all, and his consigliere's there. Anybody that knows anything about the mom knows what that is. And his consigliere's there, his protection's there, and they have this meeting with Alvarez. And then they walk into this warehouse, and they had some intel where they ended up, basically finding somebody that had even more intel. And I'll let Mike take over from here.
They capture this guy, and big thing is like, especially, it comes time to have to torture this guy because they got to get some intel out of him. Obviously, he has a lot of connections with this rebellion. So obviously he knows a lot more.
He's seen something because he kept saying there was kids.
So the guy, he obviously seen that whenever his son was taken, he seen what happened. He seen that they were kids, and something they had mentioned was that, like I'd said before, the kids are very serious. So they didn't flinch whenever the time came. Whenever it's time to take a child, whenever a kid's involved and it's seeing a baby getting taken, but there's no hesitation, there's obviously something that's happened. Like I said, this is not business for any of them. This is personal, and so that's the way that I believe a lot of this is played. Is obviously this cartel has had a lot to do with to ruining a lot of people's lives in Mexico and the border. So the children's taking them, and so that they're
not to cut you off, but I want to add to your point. There's actually a video that what Mike's talking about. The reason you see it so personal, they're taking kilos of coke that the Galindo deals and made a video of them just throwing them in a barrel and burning them. And it said it's time for the devil to have fear. That's what they're saying in Spanish in this video. And they've got it written down, so they post flyers all over the city like they've had absolutely enough. Like they're turning the city against these guys, trying to root them out. But go ahead.
Yeah, so it's like they're trying to turn Mexico back to the core values of what they believe is what their grandparents and their families, their forefathers were before the cartel really took a hold of this area. So, obviously those children that actually were a part of this kidnapping, obviously they were personally affected by the cartel, which is probably the reason why it leads to them being so ruthless in this kidnapping. But I think that with this, you get to see a lot of different aspects of, how, the Galindo cartel, how they've had such an influence in Mexico, but also how his wife, Emily, you get to see how from the very beginning how desperate she must feel, and of course with your child getting kidnapped, you get to see this and how the relationship between her and her husband, and how desperate she is of not wanting him to retaliate. And that's something that plays a real big here, is no retaliation.
But then his father says, we got to draw first blood.
Mm-hmm. So, and which is another thing. And then of course they play this into that he finds out that his own brother, when he was younger, was taken, and it didn't turn out so well. So, so it kind of gives you an idea, of hey, what are we going to get in the next upcoming season or the show?
Well,
what are we going to see? Is this going to turn into something that maybe does the past come back to haunt them? Does it be something that could kind of happen again? Or do we get, does the baby survive or what?
We have a huge nugget. Right after that, Coco goes looking for his sister. And we have a blast from the past. Chuck shows up.
Oh, Chucky.
And he's, if anybody knows Chuck, he's the guy that had the masturbation problem. His hands got cut off because of it, and Sons. And of course, he's looking at porn when Coco walks up to him. So that's pretty cool. Other than that, he didn't really say much or do much. And then,
but he works for him, so that's
he does work for him.
So you got to look at
his linked in there at that point.
I can see a lot more of old Chucky.
And then, basically, Miguel Galindo sends out his main protection, with the Mayans out on a run to go hunt down that car, which, oh, by the way, Ezekiel, while they're in that meeting and questioning that son, the guy, which we didn't hit on this, I'll hit on it right fast. When they're in that room and they're getting that intel that the guy me and Mike talked about, they take grease off of a stove, like just pure grease that's been boiling, and just throw it on this dude. And I mean, it's just roast, his skin's just peeling off of it. And the guy's a screaming bloody murder. And
it's pretty gruesome.
They bring in his son, who's probably 11 or 12, and they're fisting to throw grease on him. And Ezekiel actually speaks up, and he's talking in the background. Well, then Miguel Galindo, the big dog, hears him whispering. He says, "You got something to say?" And he says, "Yeah, if you didn't treat him like he said, if you didn't treat him like a grease monkey, maybe you get some answers out of him."
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, "Oh shit!" So I said, "This dude's got a set of balls on him." So they almost get a rumble there, so you can feel this tension growing. So Ezekiel actually no, with Ezekiel, it was
was his brother.
Yes,
his family. That's in the MC
spoke up.
Because he knew, because Ezekiel spoke up before about the station wagon that he had seen on the side of the road. So he keeps this in his back pocket. They don't talk about it. So, which is, a card that you want to play later. And they kind of learned from the previous meeting, even in the first show.
For him to keep his mouth shut.
Keep their mouth shut.
He didn't fucking do it.
You don't want to reveal all your cards. So, of course, right before the child, they take this little boy and they're about to throw grease on him and torture him, him and his father to get answers. Of course, he pulls out this information that he has about this station.
Basically saved that little boy.
Saves the little boy's life and his father at the time. And, you start thinking, well, okay, so this guy's obviously got a heart. He's trying to balance this. That we also see in the first show that they're trying to be on the side of this rebellion, but also they're trying to play both sides of the fence.
You can tell him he's got a heart for him.
Yeah.
But, everybody knows he's already double agent from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got to kind of watch his P's and Q's, plus balance being a prospect and working his way up, plus the underlying thing with Emily being in his past, which is Miguel's current girlfriend, who he's got a baby by, who got stolen at the beginning of the show. So you talk about twists and turns.
Well, let me ask you something about this, Glenn. I'm not going to cut you off on that, but okay, so we've got Ezekiel. Obviously, we know that he knows that his ex is with the cartel leader. So, do you think that he may have any idea that they used to be in a relationship together?
I think.
Do you think he can kind of feel that there's obviously some kind of connection?
I think that if I did, but I don't now, because hell, his protection seen her talking to this guy.
Yeah.
And that was my next point is she actually shows up to his dad's shop where they do a lot of underlying meetings and shit like that. Well, his dad owns this shop. Ezekiel's dad owns this shop, and his Galindo protection brings Emily to the shop while it's closed down and nobody's there to talk to Ezekiel. They call him EZ on the show. And they're in there chatting, and he promises her there's nothing going to happen to her baby. He guarantees her that. And then me and Mike was looking at each other like, dude, he's got a set of balls, man. The dudes are right outside the door. So then they open the damn door. And they're sitting there basically hugging. And I'm like, dude, either these guards know, or this dude's got the biggest balls I've ever seen.
Yeah. I think that we're going to get to see a lot more of how this is going to play out throughout, because you got to start thinking, obviously she knows he's part of the club.
Yep.
And obviously they're working for the cartel, helping them out on a little side business. So she knows, and then he knows that she's with the Galindos. So, if she's married to the top dog, obviously there's a lot more of this story's going to play out as we go along, to where you get to see how much they all know and how this kind of came to be, of how their relationship ended. He goes to prison and how she became to meet Mr. Galindo, and how that kind of plays out.
And the Galindo's dad, actually, after he had to talk with his son right around this time, actually right before that little meeting happened, and he told him, he said, we got to strike first. We sit back, bad things happen when we sit back and let this happen. So the next scene, rolling after that, you see the Mayans walking through the city, and all of a sudden you hear a bunch of people like grieving, and you walk over there, and it's the father and son that were, he saved the son originally by giving up information. Well, not so much now. They're completely burned, roasted. They look like 2 hot dogs have been left on a grill for about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And they got like a cross or something sticking out of their throat where they just jabbed it down in their throat.
It's the flyers that they were having.
Oh, okay.
The
okay,
flyers, they rolled them up, stuck it in their mouth while they were torched.
And they put it down their throat, and I was like, man, these dudes are killing kids or killing. That's one thing, like Italian mob, they didn't mess with kids and they didn't mess with wives. That's what separates them with the cartels of modern day, because they kill kids, they kill wives, they kill anybody they can get their hands on. So yeah, you see that, and then you say, okay, the Galindo cartel is just a bunch of savage animals, dude, which I thought was just really disgusting. So then we're rolling on to the end of the show, and Coco is driving down what looks like some kind of hooker lane, just tons of hookers, and you think he's looking for his sister.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all of a sudden, here comes this woman that don't look like she'd be in porn. She looks like an old hag, sort of. And she leans over, and she just don't look that good at all. I mean, it's kind of disgusting. And come to find out, it's his mom.
Yes, it's get in the car, Mom. So
He said, get in the fucking car, Mom. We got a lot to talk about. So
obviously, the whole family's kind of, obviously the whole family's involved in some things. Obviously, sister's in porn, and she's a streetwalker. So
and he's in a damn Mexican biker gang that does all kind of illegal stuff.
So we get to see a lot, but and Cuck Sutter, he's all about different layers of story. We're going to have different angles, and with
he usually brings them together.
Yeah.
So he's got about 15 things going on at once right now.
Mm-hmm.
So that was this episode. Now, moving forward, there's so many different angles to go with. I think Mike hit on it. The EZ and Miguel, that's going to come to a head.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way that these two are going to keep. At some point that's going to come to a head. Well, then he's also battling being a DEA agent. Well, then he's also battling making his way from being a prospect to basically in the true gang.
Mm-hmm.
So this dude's doing the biggest Gallagher juggling act I've ever seen right now.
Yeah, and you don't, and like I say, you have no idea which direction this is going to go.
No.
So that's something I think that, of course, as you see this video, I know you guys have got some opinions. We'd like for you to go on Facebook and go on
YouTube too, please.
And just tell us where you think this direction is going to go. We all need your opinion and what you think, because it's very important for us to get some feedback, and we love to read it. So.
We also had tons of people on YouTube comment on our first episode review, which I really appreciated. This one's a little bit more organized. We took a few notes off of it. We bounced back and forth a little bit, but we kind of had to explain what we were talking about. But yeah, like he said, going forward, comment on that on Facebook especially, on YouTube especially. We're not going to keep chatting. We're going to try to get this uploaded tonight. So basically, if you guys like our content, which I hope you do, you're watching the show, please hit the subscribe button and please hit the bell beside it to get all of our new videos as soon as they drop.
Please share. Please share everything.
This is a Real in a Beer, Mayans MC episode 2 review. We're out.